So, I'm going to call this ad hoc committee meeting to order and do a roll call of our voting members.
John Farrar.
Damon Jesperson.
Cindy Currier.
Kathy Zaremba. Josephine Antico.
Josephine, I'm going to introduce you second because you're not a voting member. You are just you're just here as a guest for this one. So,
Okay.
now introductions of other folks.
Josephine Antico.
We have Bill DeMeo and Jerry DeMeo in the audience and Joyce Machiro. So, updates on what has happened. So I believe you've had a couple more conversations and I think I've spoken to you, but why don't you tell everyone what you found and if you found anything else that we have overlooked as a need for the program.
No, I've had two strong meetings with the town of Newburyport and the town of Rowley. And Rowley's, by the way, is in an old schoolhouse back on Central, and they're looking to also upgrade and looking for new locations. So they're in the same bailiwick that we are. And the sense of it is that space, as Cindy has pointed out, you need it for efficiency. You need it at home, whatever that facility is. So I mean, square footage properly used, auditorium space, game room space, entertainment space, and full-time kitchen. That's what they all have. And Amesbury's a bit fortunate in that they inherited a building that was granted to the town for $1, for $1 literally. So they fell into good fortune, and Newburyport is obviously the good fortune of having an arena that houses a whole lot of elements in Newburyport. And both of the Amesbury and Newburyport, as I mentioned to you, they have the good grace of a lot of commercial base.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes life a whole lot different. And,
Yes, funds are much more available when
Yeah.
they don't have to come off of residential tax base.
Exactly. But then that it comes down to, I asked both of them, is there any effort for looking for endowment from foundations? Not grants through the federal or state level, but private foundations and any fundraising that goes on. And that they said that they had no such formal element, but there are gifts. And we should put that on the agenda and find out if that has any potential in this village.
Well, I think, yes, when we would ask for that, I think we start asking now, as soon as possible. I don't know if the right thing is to go to the select board and ask them, but it's a good thought, so we just have to figure out how to do it in a way that we might succeed.
We have a lot of remarkably well-off and just fortunate families in this village. Some very strong personalities and strong concern and loyalty to this town. And one of the things I would do is simply identify them, call them together in a quiet meeting, and ask them what they think. And the first person who talks loses.
Fair enough. Well, if you want to start that, I certainly would support you in bugging all the rich people in town.
Yeah.
Cindy and I have met and gone over the space needs and done some rough calculations, which everyone has a copy of, for square footage, sort of, and these were all minimums. I think the next step is I'll reach out to some of my friends from the previous building committee and see if they can vet some of the numbers. And this doesn't really give us a total square footage because we didn't have a utility room, we didn't have hallways, we didn't have stairs, all of the things that an architect puts into a building that take up space. We just tried to get a good idea of what the minimum space needs for any given space would be. And so we put that together, and unless there are objections, I will share that with Tracy and the select board, because I think they need to see it in its nascent state as these things develop and move along. So I'm asking each of you for approval for that. You look terrified over there, Kathy.
No,
You don't think I should share it?
no, you should share it.
Okay.
The more people that know, the better we are.
All right.
Do it.
Very good.
Same.
I'm in agreement.
Okay.
I wanted to ask Cindy, you got the note that reaches back 3 years between Eric and myself?
Yes.
I mean, that speaks volumes to specific location and a lot of the things you're looking for, the inside and outside experience.
All right, did you have anything you wanted to add as far as an update?
No, just like I had said at the previous meeting, we are outgrowing space that we
Outgrowing
have.
space.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, even Chris, as she was leaving, just said that I had one person who won't come back to the yoga class yet because the space is too tight at the field house.
Mm.
Which is a good problem to have. That means a lot more people are attending.
Yeah.
But I don't want people not to attend programs because they feel there's not enough room for them. I will reach out to the library to see if that's an option for us. The room isn't that much bigger, but it's a square as opposed to at the field house, there's a bump out because of the
Yes.
kitchen area, so it's more of an L shape. It just makes it more difficult to have
Yeah.
a full class. So I would love to have them downstairs, but between people that just walk in, the phone call, it's not conducive to a yoga class.
Yeah.
So
There's no privacy,
no.
none.
And the room that we have, the side room, it's too small. It's even smaller than the field house room, really. It's like a conference room, so.
The library, the auditorium with the stage, is that sufficient for you?
Auditorium with the stage.
What is that large?
There's one, if you walk into the front door, there's a room right on the left
On
where
the
they
left.
have, yeah, I don't believe there's a stage in there.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it's not a huge room, but it's quiet and it's square, so they could maybe.
Yeah. And again,
Manipulate the
easy
space a bit.
access, so.
So I will talk, I don't know what their availability is on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. They could be
Yep.
booked, that room could be booked, so.
It's
we'll try.
it's certainly worth an inquiry.
But
I mean,
that's
it's
just-
school hours, so there's no
Yeah.
kids there.
Until the summer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
till summertime.
So, but that just adds to my dilemma
Mm.
of space,
Yes, running out of space all over the place.
right?
Do you have anything to update?
No,
Thoughts?
I just have one thing. So last week we had our St. Patrick's lunch, and it just kind of drove the point home that it took, the day before bringing everything we own to Peter Hall. We're very grateful to Peter Hall. We're very grateful that we get to use Peter Hall. But it's bringing everything from the toilet paper to the package of sugars.
Mhm.
And carting it over there, setting it up the day before, having the event that day, and then carting everything back, putting it all away. It's huge. We love doing those events, and we're so grateful to Peter Hall. But with that being said, it's a lot. It's a lot because we don't have the space here.
Yes.
I mean, the
And they're our
space,
most popular events,
huge.
by far.
And you're on the road twice.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but it'd be just so much better if everything was all together, that we weren't like going to the field house to set yoga up, going to Peter Hall to do that. We have to use all these different places. We're glad that we can use these other places and we don't have to pay for them. That's a beautiful thing. But with that being said,
I
it was so
arrived at
great.
Peter Hall, I brought 2 guests with me, and we ended up parking on the road to the Federal Reservation.
Yeah.
And I noticed the parking lot at the old restaurant was absolutely jam-packed,
Yeah.
improperly jam-packed. And if that place finds a new owner in purpose, that's
be
a
out
lot
of
of,
that.
those spaces are gonna disappear, evaporate quickly.
Right.
And I can't imagine people wanting to park a half a mile down toward the gate to the Federal Reservation
Oh.
and finding their way back with walkers and canes.
no.
Or
That's-
even not.
or-
You know,
they
when we
won't.
do things in November and December and March, it can be cold and
Exactly.
windy,
Yeah.
so.
So that's a coming issue, it's an approaching issue.
And another issue is that the Beachcomber usually lets us park there, and they were just sold.
Yep.
New
So-
Orange, yeah.
That's the next thing. Like, will they continue to let us use that spot?
Their hours might
Well,
change and
he's a former employee of the Beachcomber, so he's probably gonna be in the same spirit of the current ownership.
That would be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, he's not a stranger.
there's no guarantee though.
No, there's no
Right.
And
guarantee.
there's
So that's
no
just
guarantee
another
that they're
parking
not gonna
spot.
change their hours.
Right.
Right now, they don't, the Beachcomber hasn't been open on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons.
Yeah.
So it was no skin off their nose.
Yeah.
And they were very,
Right,
very generous to let us
yeah,
use their space. But
Thoughtful family, long time.
Mhm.
yeah.
I
So
think he
just a
was
few
their
things.
old bartender and dishwasher.
Yeah,
Bartender and dishwasher.
At least that's what I remember.
Mm.
Can I say something? I hear people saying to me that they want to have a council on aging in the former town hall. And I'm constantly saying that's not acceptable, it's unsafe, it's filled with mold, it doesn't have handicap access. Are there any thoughts as to where you want this council on aging to be?
So right now, we're vetting out the program needs and space. And then once we have that square footage in a rough shape, we can start to look for location. So we are not at that process. John has already decided where he's building this building,
Yeah.
regardless of anything else. But we will move, once we finish this phase of the work, we will move into looking at all the different available spaces. And we will look at that space, though it does not seem like an ideal space, because it's something the town owns. And so we will certainly rank it as well as Lunch Street and any other ideas. So if anyone has ideas outside of those two spaces that they would like to put forward, one of the things that will be upcoming is building a grading matrix, much like we did for the police station, where the requirements and considerations for the space will be evaluated. You know, does it have a septic system? You know, an option for that. You know, people wanted us to build the police station with no septic. We'd already done that once. It was terrible for the police. They really didn't like the, you know, septic flies and the things coming out of the overfilled tank into their locker room. So, you know,
I'll go on record saying we don't want that out there.
but, you know, we will create a large matrix that has the, you know, baseline requirements, ADA access, sufficient parking, and then things that are more ideal, you know, outside space to do outdoor recreation in. How close to other town facilities is it, or can it be integrated with other town functions? Because that, the overlap is something that we have seen to be very important. You know, being next to town hall brings people in, so that if the space can be combined with another town function that people attend, it gets a higher rank. So we will create a big matrix that we will then share with the select board for why we think certain spaces are better than other spaces. But we are not at that point yet in the work of this committee.
I'll just give you an anecdote. As they're moving all this equipment, Kathy, Cindy, and even Janine, I say, was this in the job description? I always say that to them. Are you crazy? Because, I mean, not that they're not in great shape, but these are women, and they're lifting things that most men wouldn't lift. I see it.
Strong.
Right, yeah.
There'll be a big cry for the Morgan Avenue location because the building's there, we own the land.
Yeah, I know.
I would make the case that it's a dangerous intersection. Hanover Parker, Route 1A is a thoroughfare. And there are people going through there at enormous speeds, not often listening or watching that light, running through the red light because it has its issues, its timing issues, and people sit there and say there are no inbound cars, why is it still red? And they just accelerate through the color. And basically Tendercrop has brought a horde of folks down Parker or Hanover to get there, or out of Ipswich, and then they go to Newburyport to follow. So it's not just regional travel, it's go-through travel. And the go-through travel comes through at high speeds. And I think that the element of bringing elderly folks in large groups or in small groups to that intersection of so many byways. Morgan Avenue is called Avenue for a reason, because it's a commercial road to Plum Island and Newburyport. It's Rolf's Lane, ludicrous. Should be Rolf's Avenue, because it's a speedway. And again, that's inappropriate place to put an elderly gathering location for all intents and purposes. Dangerous, inappropriate. Probably a great spot for a new town hall. Apologies for the directness.
So, before we move on to the next steps, since we have entertained a question from Josephine, are there any other questions from the audience or comments that you guys would like to share?
Not at this time.
All right, well, thank you guys for attending. So, the next steps, John, since you brought up this fundraising idea, why don't you start trying to gather some names and see what you can find on that. For me, the next step is going to be meeting with some of the architects I know in town to vet the square footage and start to get a better handle on the rough square footage minimums that we put in and make sure that this is accurate. And I will also reach out to the select board and Tracy to keep them up to date. I was hoping that Kathy and Cindy could start to pull things from our list of needs to help make a matrix for vetting sites. So, you know, things like it needs to be accessible, we need to have, you know, adequate parking, all those things, break them out into something that can go into a matrix that can be scored, you know, 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, however we decide to put that matrix together.
And Cindy's point of outdoor space is vital. That's an important add.
So, I think that does. Are there other things that you guys would like to see worked on at this point, or does this seem like movement in the right direction?
I think it's in the right direction. There's a 2021 dated exchange and drawings from Eric.
Yep.
And I don't know whether I've sent that to you. I think you were still on the board, select board, when I sent that out. And
Yes, I'll talk with Eric.
Okay.
I figure Eric and Bob I know pretty well and can.
I've tried
Bug them
I've just,
a little
that
bit.
was the start of my capital campaign, is I've already emailed Robert and Bob and Eric to have coffee. They like to have coffee over on the circle and just start there. And that's where we can scratch the list. We know who the folks are. They make quantum livings in Newburyport, unfortunately, instead of Newbury, but they live in our village. Isn't that interesting?
Yep. And then the next thing is to establish the next meeting date. I don't know if we want to meet in a month after the next Council on Aging, or if we think we need a little more time to progress before it makes sense to meet again.
That's up to you. That's up to you.
1 month comes quickly.
Yes, I think, why don't we plan for 2 months, especially because I know I'm going to be away a bunch, actually. So, why don't we do May?
May 20th is the third
Okay,
Monday, and that would be what we would do for our COA meeting.
so May 20th at 9:30? All right, so let's do that if everyone is in agreement.
Okay.
And then I would entertain a motion to adjourn our ad hoc meeting.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Here.
Back to work.